Hello and welcome to the Oath Keeper Show, a collection of rants, raves, personal observations, and insights on current events, social issues, and things that just don't pass the common sense test. I am the Oath Keeper, and here's today's topic. Sadly, we had yet another shooting on a military installation. The echoes of the shots had barely subsided when Henry Winkler made it a political issue by tweeting, "Another shooting in Washington, D.C. Please, America, do nothing to promote gun control because that's how we roll until we have all shot each other." He even beat perennial gun grabber Dianne Feinstein to the punch, and that is quite a trick considering it's almost as if she's waiting for something like this to happen so that she can call for a debate on gun control to be revisited. Again. Okay, so let's take a look at what happened. A naval contractor named Aaron Alexis killed 12 people before being killed by responders. So how does this happen? How does someone just walk onto a military installation and start shooting? How does the death toll get so high? I'm glad you asked. Back in the Carter administration, there was this misguided idea that if we presented ourselves as non-aggressive to the world, that the world would leave us alone. This live and let live fiasco allowed for Islamic fundamentalists to take over our embassy in Iran and hold the embassy staff and the Marines guarding the embassy hostage for 444 days. Wait, did I just say that the Marines were taken hostage? How in the heck did that happen? Well, that live and let live policy originally said that the Marines weren't allowed to carry weapons, and as a compromise, they were allowed to carry weapons, they weren't allowed to carry ammunition. Keep this in mind, it's going to come back. Reagan got elected and immediately rescinded this nightmare of a policy, and we enjoyed years of not having our military attacked on their own bases. That was until Bill Clinton got elected and he reinstated the policy that added that we, I was in the Air Force at the time, also weren't allowed to have any weapons in our possession while on base, including any privately owned weapons. Since that moronic decision, there have been 16 attacks on military bases, with the most recent at Fort Hood when Major Nadal Hassan killed 14 people. Now, I know that the official count was 13, but I'm counting the baby that he killed when he shot pregnant Army Private Francesca Velez, who unsuccessfully pled with him. But hey, he was conducting jihad against American soldiers, so he killed her anyway and just didn't care. We know this because he had been handing out business cards that identified himself as a soldier of jihad long before his terrorist attack on the base. Nothing was done to stop him prior to the shooting, as that would have been profiling, and we aren't allowed to profile our own enemies. Well, at least our Muslim enemies anyway. Obama preposterously described this as workplace violence. So in addition to being shot by a terrorist on your own base, let's go ahead and rub salt in the wound by saying that it wasn't an act of terror, which, by the way, prevents these people that were injured from getting a lot of the things that they deserve and need because of it. The issue was that despite these folks being processed to deploy overseas, none were legally allowed to even carry their service weapons on base. The term fish in a barrel comes to mind, and I'm sure that is what Hassan was thinking when he set out to commit his act of terror against Americans. I'm sure that every single person who plots the wholesale killing of people thinks about that beforehand. Do you go to a gun range? Do you go to a gun show? Do you go to an NRA meeting to kill people? Or do you go where you know they will not be armed? Say a theater, town hall meeting, or the like. I think you would choose a place where you know that no one is allowed to carry weapons, like James Holmes, Nadal Hassan, Jared Loughner, and Aaron Alexis did. Then there are the gun grabbers in the liberal mainstream media that seem to insist every shooting that takes place involves an AR-15. Look at the Sandy Hook incident. For weeks, and in some cases even to this day, Adam Lanza is credited with using an AR-15 during the attack. Reports from the scene at the Naval Yard initially stated that an AR-15 was used. When it was confirmed that it was not an AR-15, it was in fact a shotgun, CNN still clung to the AR-15 talking point by reporting that Alexis was using an AR-15 shotgun, whatever the heck that is. Some in government think that taking guns away from law-abiding citizens is the way to keep criminals and those with mental disorders from using guns. I can't see that as working really well. I mean, meth and heroin are illegal, and that hasn't done much to curb their use. Just like taking Sudafed off the shelves and putting it behind the counter hasn't made an impact on the number of meth labs popping up. With the next logical step being to take guns from everyone, I can only point to Chicago, which has some of the country's most stringent gun laws, to show yet again that gun control does not work. Even an Obama-sponsored CDC report on the cause and prevention of gun violence showed that, quote, the majority of deaths that take place annually by the use of a firearm are not related to crime, but to suicide, end quote. So the cognitive disconnect is that we can trust our military with weapons outside the United States, but not inside the United States. Maybe Reagan had it right when he said some future administration might try to take guns out of the hands of the people. Germany did it prior to World War II under the guise of making kids safe, and that turned out pretty well, didn't it? I've heard this government trying to make the same argument. Dianne Feinstein is already saying that freedom of speech is a privilege and not a right, and that she wants to be the one who determines who is and who isn't a journalist. Think about this question. Without your Second Amendment rights, how long before the government decides you don't need your other rights? You've been listening to the Oath Keeper Show on the Bear 94.5 WMRD in Maynardville, Tennessee. The opinions expressed on this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff, management, or owners of WMRD or its advertisers. You can also read my column in the Polygraph newspaper, available in most places around the tri-state area. Thanks for listening. Have a great day.